Hi. Namaste,
Namaste,
Mataji.
namaste.
Good morning.
Om. Om bhurvuvaswaha tatsavidhurvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhyo yona prachodhayat. Om bhurvuvaswaha tatsavidhurvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhyo yona prachodhayat. Om bhurvuvaswaha tatsavidhurvarenyam bhargo devasya dhimahi dhyo yona prachodhayat. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Yes, Chikaji?
So, yes, Saroj bhai.
Yeah, thank you, Yashikaji. So our session today is titled Power of Spiritual Heritage. And to share her thoughts, so this Sunday we have Srimati Sarisha Rameshlall Komal, and she is a strong Hindu leader, a strong Nari Shakti head of HSS in South Africa, as well as a teacher and writer. And Yashika Van has conducted her interview, so where we hear from our sister Sarisha ji from Middle East. So over to Yashika ji and Nilesh ji.
Thank you, Saroj bhai. So, let's play the video which was recorded by Yashika ji, I think 10 days before. We were unable to play this last week due to our logistics problem. So, yeah, please share your comments after the video.
And we'll be able to engage with questions with the team after that. There's some very insightful information that has come through the interview. So I hope everyone enjoys it.
All people who come from different parts of the world, and the Hindu community being no exception. They came to this land with scripture in one hand and a will to survive in the other. But their journey was not always good. There was a lot of pain and suffering. And in spite of that, our forefathers achieved amazing success. Today, we are the descendants of these people who came here, who worked on the sugarcane plantations, but over the course of time understood freedom and was able to contribute to this wonderful land called South Africa. Not only South Africa is a beacon of light to the continent, but it is also a beacon of light to the world. And we, the descendants, have traveled far and wide with these values. Sarisha ji, we would love to hear your story in terms of how you have worked in this period in South Africa and abroad in harnessing the strengths of women, particularly Hindu women, over a period of time. Your work has been involved in community development. It has been involved in women empowerment projects. You have also been involved with spiritual healing, because you have realized the value that spirituality plays in our lives. We would love to hear from you, your story, and after that, there will be a Q&A where I'll be able to ask you some questions.
Namaste, everyone. Namaste, Yashika Ben. What a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much for that heartwarming introduction. Really appreciate it. And so awesome to see you, even if it means via technology for now. Thank you again, and happy Heritage Month, South Africa.
Thank you.
There are two things that come to mind when I think about my narrative specifically with regards to heritage. And I want to share just two for now. I remember some 13 years ago when my family and I moved to the Western Cape. And we moved to the Western Cape and I started working in a predominantly Western environment with Christian and Muslim children, young children who were born and raised in that community. I was very blessed that I worked with very loving families, but they had very little exposure to Hinduism and even less exposure to an Indian female from Durban. So it was about 3 months into my work contract that a very excited young child came to me with his teacher. And he said, Ms Sarisha, I want to share something with you. I know what Hinduism is all about. And I remember quite excitedly looking at him, but of course confused at the same time. And I looked at the teacher for some kind of encouragement as to what was he referring to. And the teacher said to me, you know, now in life orientation, and this is now 13 years ago, we've introduced a curriculum where students have to be introduced to the different South African religions. And this young boy said to me in the class that he knows all about Hinduism because of his teacher, Ms Sarisha.
Wow.
So I acknowledged him and I said, thank you, but what does it actually mean? He says, Ms Sarisha, you know, I am very grateful that you always share with us your vegetarian meals, and you always tell us, that you do not eat anything that has a mommy and a daddy. Ms. Sarisha, I'm also so grateful that you care for the stray animals in and around the school, the cats and the dogs. And also you make canned food preparations and you leave it outside for the homeless people. And every time we as the children talk to you, you speak to us so calmly and encouragingly. I tell you, my heart was just crying with absolute happiness, listening to a young student born and raised in a small community where so little exposure was, but he was able to understand a small understanding of Hinduism, but obviously something that I hold very close to my heart. And I looked at him and I thanked him, and in my heart, I said, you know, I said a prayer of gratitude, an acknowledgement for that moment. So that was the first incident. And then in 2017, I moved to Abu Dhabi, the United Arab Emirates. And the very first day that I was in Abu Dhabi, we had an orientation program. And I was very fortunate to meet a senior social worker. And he looked at me and he said, where are you from? What nationality are you? And I said to him, I am South African. And he said, South African? I like South Africans. South Africans are very hardworking people and they're very respectful people. Again, it was a moment of wow. So I recall, and he said to me, he's happy to be able to work with me because of those two qualities, because he's managed to work with many South Africans and they worked very, very well. When I think back at my experience in the Western Cape, and then again, the experience in the United Arab Emirates, away from home environment, there are two things again that stand out. And I can only bring it back to my heritage. The fact that it is because I carry with me the lineage from where I come, in the way I think, in the way I talk, in the way I communicate with people, and the way I live my life with conscious decisions and actions. And that can be only from one's heritage. And I always give credit to the one, you know, the indentured laborers of 160 years now, because they truly have come with that passion and that perseverance and that wanting so much more, that spirit of wanting more, that it has now filtered through, even in myself, 4 and 5 generations later. So my understanding of Hindu Dharma through this time has come from that, and it has come through living consciously in every decision and in every action. And the highlight for me is that when others who are not directly involved with Hindus, who are not directly involved with Indians, who are not directly involved with South Africans, are able to identify key aspects of our culture and heritage, I think that in itself is an applaudable quality.
Excellent. Absolutely brilliant. And Sarisha, making your way into a different country, something that was, not prevalent in South Africa, because our country has many different religions and many different paths. How did you navigate your journey there? And what were some of the values that taught you to be resilient and to be strong?
Oh, again, what a powerful question. Ultimately for me, it comes back to the understanding that our very core greeting of namaste, I salute the divine in you. I mean, if one has to truly unpack that on its own and truly make it part of your life in living, you're open to the possibility of understanding that we see God in every person from exactly the perspective of who we are and where we are. So it allows me then to truly not just say namaste as a greeting, but actually as an internal process of accepting people for who they are and who I am. And I think this is the thing that has truly been able to give me the courage to surrender to the diverse communities that I've been truly blessed to work with, and open myself to learning and also still holding my own wherever I am and with whomever I'm working.
Excellent. So a simple greeting like namaste, the fact that we put our palms together, has a much deeper significance in terms of a spiritual value. They often quote from the Rig Veda, with all the power of my hands, with all the intelligence of my mind, I pay my due respects to the soul within you. So what an important teaching that is, that has come through 160 years, of indenture to South Africa. Do you think that such a symbol is also universal, and that it can be adopted in different circumstances? Look at COVID-19, for example.
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, the UK Seva project has now created a very beautiful video of people from diverse communities doing namaste and talking about COVID, that it's still such a connecting greeting. We are still so connected because ultimately, if I understand what I'm saying, just as you so beautifully now recited from the Rig Veda, that if I understand that mantra, and when I understand that mantra and I do the action, automatically it connects us, automatically it binds us as people. So I definitely think there's nothing simple about that greeting at all. Yeah.
Absolutely. One of the things in South Africa that we've come to learn in our new democracy is the word Ubuntu.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure you must have shared that with your students as well, the concept of I am because you are. Does it not remind you of a concept like Vasudeva Kutumbakam?
Totally. Absolutely. And exactly that's where even the whole idea of Hindu Seva comes in. Because all Hindu Seva initiatives, for me as, a South African born Indian Hindu female, the idea of Seva and the idea of Ubuntu comes in quite nicely. It's in sync for me because I understand that the spirit of who you are and the spirit of giving is innate qualities. That if I understand that you are an element of God, and if I am making sure that I'm equally upscaling and upskilling your life, ultimately I'm serving God. So that's what I really love about the combination of Ubuntu and Seva together, because it allows me to create initiatives or to be part of initiatives that ultimately serve and make sense that truly the whole world is one big family. You and I can be anywhere in the world, but be part and parcel of a bigger understanding.
Absolutely, that's incredible. I think the value systems that we learned from India are values that are transcending, and that we can adapt that to any circumstance wherever we are. Do you think that such values played an important role for the suffering of the indentured laborers when they came here, that they had to hold on to maybe the Ramcharitmanas or the Bhagavad Gita in order to see the bigger vision for their children? What were some of those values, do you think?
I think on an individual level, the two values that will always stand out for me is the value of an education and the value of religious practices. Because if one looks, I mean, you know, we are 4th and 5th generation South Africans, right? If one looks at what did our indentured laborers do very first when they arrived in South Africa, even through all the trials and atrocities that they experienced, what was the focus? Making sure that we had places of worship, making sure that there were education facilities available for the children. And now if you look back 4 and 5 generations into, if you look at how Indians have explored the world, South African Indians have explored the world because they understand a deep connection with God, because nobody can take that away from you anywhere in the world, no matter what you are dealing with. Once one has a solid foundation, a deeply spiritual, religious foundation, nobody can take that away from you. And that was the one thing that our forefathers ensured, the places of worship in South Africa. The second one is education. I mean, look at our Indian community in South Africa right now. The most highly qualified Indians are in South Africa, and we keep going at it. Parents save to make sure their children are educated. If you look at the stats, recent stats, it even proves the South African Indians have been able to work all over the world because of being highly educated. So it was the perseverance and the vision, the foresight of our forefathers, that they were able to make sure that our children are educated and our children will always have home. Have home how? Have home through our religious practices.
Absolutely. And I think that was the fundamental stability of the Indian community, the opportunity to keep ritual as a sense of discipline. But more importantly, one of the key factors that came out is the spirit of volunteership. And volunteerism, or volunteership, as some people might say, is at the heart of the Indian community in terms of education, as you've mentioned, in terms of hospitals, in terms of helping others. Why do you think this is an important aspect when we consider our heritage?
I think because we understand that service to mankind is service to God, because seva is ultimately that. So if I am serving in whatever capacity I can, from wherever and however I can serve, I am ultimately serving God. And who would not want to do that? Who would not want to be part of that process or that journey? So I think that understanding is very ingrained in us. Hence, we have so many seva projects, and volunteerism is such a normal part of our lives. Irrespective of how much difficulties we are experiencing, you will still find Hindu families going to satsang and making sure that they are part of the weekly programs that are enabling other families to improve their lives, shaka programs. I feel it's ingrained in our genealogy, really, because we understand the idea of service to man is service to God.
Absolutely. And Swami Vivekananda always emphasized that the nature of the soul is part and parcel of the one reality. There is no difference. So I think when the Hindu has recognized that, he sees everything as the spirit of oneness. Do you think that is a huge part, or plays a huge part in the life of a Hindu, that they see everything as part of the one?
You know what, of course, it's a journey to get to that understanding, no doubt. It's a long journey for many of us also to get to that, but indeed it is. It absolutely is. And as soon as we get it, and as soon as we surrender to it, nothing else matters really.
Absolutely. Sarisha ji, can you share a little bit about your experience in South Africa in terms of empowering women, especially in the rural communities and in Phoenix, etc., where there has been much difficulty in terms of economic pressures?
I'm very fortunate to be part of very dynamic Hindu organizations from a young age, and of course community organizations as well. So we were always able to give a little bit more of ourselves wherever we can. And as an adult, you realize that there is so much more that's needed. And you know, as I mentioned earlier, that the two things that I feel indentured laborers, the value of a good education cannot be compromised. And the value of good skills cannot be compromised. So the one thing that we really highlighted, especially with Hindu Sevika Samiti, and worked directly with various other NGOs, with various child welfare programs and gender forums, was making sure that women were given opportunities to understand their own abilities and capabilities. So we had a lot of awareness programs through emotional intelligence training, through skilling of manifesting one's own dreams. Basically, we started off doing very simple work by simply having yoga sessions, deep sessions, getting women to start to relax, to start to feel that my presence is invaluable, to give women an opportunity to think that I am actually important, I am actually invaluable, I have a purpose, I have a presence. And as soon as we started doing that through simple yoga, through laughter therapy, through various other chakra activities, we then moved on. It was a wonderful journey, actually. We then moved on to a little bit more of the academic aspects, where we fed good quality information about different skills that were necessary, different counseling skills. Basically, the women in the organizations that I worked with and that I volunteered with, each person identified their key skill and they shared that with us. I mean, how beautiful is that? That irrespective of what we are dealing with, we are able to identify that this is something I'm still good at, so I can share that with. So most of the communities, you know, I wouldn't actually just say rural communities, to be quite frank. It was South African community that really enjoyed maximum benefit of our volunteership in terms of educational initiatives, in terms of upskilling various necessary day-to-day skills so that they live more empowered lives.
Absolutely. I think the community has come a long way, and it has been because of people like you who've taken the time and the opportunity to serve so much, especially to the elderly. Do you find that when we reflect upon the heritage of our community, that the elderly played a key role in terms of education and value education in South Africa?
No doubt. There is no doubt in my mind. I mean, if I look at just in my own family situation, in my own very community that I was raised, we had bare minimum, although I never understood it as that because we lived very happy lives, okay? But there was always the presence of, you would have to be educated. You will go to school. You will make sure. I mean, I remember there was no sick days when we were children. You will be going to school because you have to be educated. Parents made sure that my daughter or my son was going to university. And however they're going to get to university, they were going to go to university. And you know what? It was at the expense of their mental and physical health. That I always hold very dear to my heart. But I can say quite, with such gratitude now, that I feel their sacrifices has given them, our elders in our community, a sense of joy now. Because the 4th and 5th generation of children right now is allowing the parents before us to see that, you know what, the sacrifices that you've made have not gone astray. We are using it well, and it is because of your sacrifices.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. I think we owe our elders, and we need to pay homage to them. I don't think we do enough of that, today, especially in a very modern lifestyle. So in coming to our, a little bit more to a spiritual space, the heritage of spirituality is also very key from a Hindu perspective. Can you share some of the teachings that you've been working with in terms of aligning chakra, in terms of aligning people to get into their sense of centeredness? And what is that legacy that we have that we are able to share with others?
What a fantastic question. It truly is about alignment of an individual understanding their personal power. For me, it is about making sure that when I'm working with somebody, or even when I'm working with my own self, which is a work in progress daily, quite frankly, it's always about reminding myself and those that I'm working with in terms of holistic healing about individual power and potential. So it's something that's available and diverse to all communities. And all the work that's done is constantly tapping in on the various understandings of how we are holistic beings, that we are not just a physical body, that we are not just an emotional being, that we are not just connected spiritually. It links so many other aspects, And it gives us the opportunities to tap into at various levels using a variety of tools to give a sense of calm confidence to people from diverse communities so that they can function more holistically, so that they can function more whole. And that's what we want ultimately, because ultimately that's what our heritage is. It's one of perseverance, passion, and persistence to develop potential. And that is what it is basically.
Excellent. Absolutely brilliantly said. You've written a book recently. And maybe you can share a minute or so about why you wrote it, and can it help other young Hindu women to be strong and to face the next generation with confidence?
The book Notes on My Fridge was actually, done over a period of 9 years. And it started off as me taking down notes when I used to do counseling with various women. So I found that as a more creative way as opposed to just, sitting down and going ... So I started writing it in different forms of narrative. Satish really enjoyed reading it, and he found the messages really profound. And he mentioned, we should do something with this year, especially because we're working so much with female empowerment and different groups of female communities. So I put the book together and we got it published. And, it's an emotional journey, because at every single time that somebody reads one or two aspects of it, I get a note, thank you. How is it that you know what's going on in my head? How is it that you know what's going on in my heart? And I say, really, it's not me. It's experiences of all of us at different stages in our lives. So it's not an easy read. It's definitely not an easy read, because it deals with the reality of the various experiences that we deal with. But it's such a real read, because if you're willing to be real with yourself and willing to then start to unpack and understand that, you know what, this is a process. I am in a journey. I don't need to get stuck here.
Yes,
So from
absolutely.
that perspective, the book has really worked well. And in a lot of Hindu workshops that we have done across the country, we use the book as conversation starters. And trust me, as soon as you read a couple of lines, you either get a few tears or you get somebody who goes like this, highly emotional, like what's happening? Or you really get individuals saying, I'm willing to talk. And for me, at the end of the day, if we are willing, if we can be the opportunity or be the agent of change for somebody else, or the catalyst of change for another family, we should build families. Our role as women is to build families, to build communities. And if this book is doing just that, I am quite content and happy.
Excellent. And I think families are also extended. It's not just the mom, dad, and 2 children, as people know it to be. It's friends, it's people coming together because they form a common bond.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Thank you, Sarisha ji. We're coming to the end of the session. Usually in the session, we will go to another Q&A as well as a prayer. But I think the last words from you in terms of our heritage and why should we be unapologetic as Hindus and unapologetic, living in a democracy like South Africa. How do we inspire that confidence?
By being the ambassador of it. Role modeling behavior is the only way. Because as I said, even in the story that over 13 years holds so dear to my heart, because if a child can understand the value of my dharma, my principles, without even knowing anything more about me, and if a person in a different country from a very diverse background can understand a little bit more about this Indian women, or South African women for that matter, it only comes because of somebody or many buddies have modeled a behavior that is rooted in principles that we value very dearly. And for me, it is our Hindu values that we must be ambassadors for. Lip service means nothing. Being able to live it fearlessly and boldly, and as Swami Vivekananda says, and how powerful a month it is, September, with all the wonderful things we know about Swami Vivekananda and the month of September, that we should be able to take one idea at least and make it your own. If it means living as a Hindu or being a model for others to be able to understand, why not?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. That is absolutely profound. And yes, indeed, it is the month of where Swami Vivekananda spoke at the Parliament of the World's Religions, and his teachings are still relevant today as it was then. Sarisha ji, thank you very much for being with us. And we really love this wonderful opportunity to have you on the World Hindu Foundation program for heritage. It's a build up to Deepavali, because this year it's 160 years of the arrival of the Indians in the country. And it is basically in the footsteps of Sri Rama. So we thank you very much for today.
Thank you. Jai
Hari
Shri Ram.
Om.
Hari Om.